And that's what a real leader does, is they take action, because you can't lead someone if you're just out there floundering yourself. You have to be, your yes has to be yes, your no has to be no. You have to focus on what is going to get you to your next goal, but what is going to get your, and I don't want to say followers, but your coaches to their next goal. And I was really honest with a coach yesterday. She's like, I don't understand why this is not happening. And I said, I don't understand it either. But we don't always have to understand it in order to continue to press forward and do what we're supposed to do. And sometimes that clarity comes on the other side of it.
Welcome to the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur, where we, Becky
and Monique, your new biz besties, both busy moms just like you.
We're here to talk all things network marketing, mom life, and how to truly live out your calling. We'll be dropping 2 episodes each week to help you, the busy mompreneur, know the exact strategies to build both your business and your home. You'll hear each week from one of the top network marketers on their best tips for what's led to their success and what's working now.
We know that you're here because you are called to something more. You have a desire to succeed in both your business and at home, and we are going to teach you how. If you love what you hear here on the podcast and want to be one of our success stories, join us inside our community, the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur, where we provide a daily social media action plan, additional resources, kingdom coaching, and more. Click the show notes for the link to join. So let's get into the episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur with myself, Monique, and Becky. And we have an amazing guest today, Elizabeth Davis with Optavia. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes, we are so excited to have you. So for those of you who are listening, every week we choose a network marketer that we admire, that we look up to, somebody who we think can share value. And so Elizabeth Davis has been someone that Becky and I have really admired so much about her heart and her character and the person who she is and the way that she runs her business with such grace, such joy. If you follow her on social media, I feel like joy is like the biggest thing that comes up. You have this huge smile. You're always encouraging other people. So for those of you who don't know Elizabeth, she is a mom of 6. She is from Huntsville, and she has been in Optavia for 4 years. And she's an incredible leader. She's an incredible encourager. She also has a podcast called Empower Her Abundantly. So welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. So for those who don't know about you, tell us just a little bit about you, your story. How did you get started in Optavia?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. I love that you said I was joy and encouraging. That's what my parents told me I was my whole life. So I have just lived up to that. And it's fun when I hear other people say that who don't even know my parents. So it's kind of fun. But yes, I'm so grateful that whether it's born that way or just the process of my being raised, that joy is kind of my mission. I want everybody to be joyful and to be positive and encouraging. So I love that. Thank you, Monique, for saying
Can
that.
I just say something about that? I think
Yeah.
that is such a testament of the power of a parent's words.
Hmm.
That when someone says something over and over and over to their child, like you believe that and you take that on.
You
It's
live
so
into
true.
it.
It's
I
so
was
true.
just thinking the same thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. I
My
just was
parents
like, oh
always
my
used to
gosh, that's
say
crazy.
that Elizabeth has a zest for life, and she's just full of joy. And I mean, saying that you bring about. I'm not a manifester. I'm a pray and speaking words of life over your children and over everyone. But you do bring about what you speak about and what you think about. And I'm so grateful that my parents spoke those words over me, and it's served me very well in my life. And my siblings also. So they didn't exclude them. And I'm a middle child. So if I got all of it, imagine how amazing my older and younger siblings are.
Love that.
Anyway, but back to how I got going and all of this. It's kind of a funny story. I really have always loved to have businesses. I am I am a perpetual entrepreneur. I mean, I usually have 3 or 4 things going on at one time, and honestly, I've been that way since a child too. When I was about 12 years old, some people in our church had, kind of started training me as a mother's helper and babysitting, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can make a lot of money doing this." And if I clean up their kitchen and organize their pantry, they even pay me more. And so I realized the ability to earn, if per se, and by doing a really good job, being able to actually earn more and kind of self-promoting. And so I kind of took that on early on. And I really wanted to buy my own school clothes, because if I bought my own school clothes, nobody could tell me not to wear that. It was mine. So it's kind of, see, look at that rebellion as a child. But that's kind of where I got started, just early on, just really kind of working for myself and moving up through that. And then I worked for a woman entrepreneur who absolutely, has had a huge impact on my life. I still love her to this day. We still talk to this day. But she had her own court reporting firm, and she hired me on as a 18 and a half year old kid to help her. And I became the manager and ran her firm with her. And it was just really, and that's what I did until I got married to Andrew. But it was just kind of a neat thing too. And she would allow me, everybody was 1099, and she would allow me to help pick who got the jobs. And I always picked the people that did the best jobs. So it was kind of like my own little network marketing team there too. So anyway, it's kind of an interesting way to live. And then got married, and got pregnant 2 months after I got married. So we pretty much were just like, bam, 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 we're gonna have a bunch of children. Excuse me. With all that, I still had other little things going on. I tried Mary Kay. I tried Longa Burger. I did all the little things that you could stay home in your house with your children and do. And I did makeovers and all that. Those businesses at that time didn't really stick with me. And I think a lot of it was just seasons. And I literally was having a baby, pregnant with another one. My husband was getting his master's degree. He wouldn't come home till 10 o'clock at night every night. And it was just a little bit too much. I mean, I had to realize and take a step back and be like, what are my priorities right now? That was 25 years ago. So it's a little bit different now. So anyway, so fast forward through all of that. We've adopted three, had 3 children, raised them, and everyone is out of the house now except my 17-year-old. And he is pretty much, self-sufficient at 17. And so I do homeschool him, but he's in a hybrid. So he goes to school 3 days a week and he's with me 2 days a week, which is really a good mix. And I get to still have that connection with him. But with all that being said, Optavia fell in my lap about 4 years ago. Honestly, I really needed to get healthy. I had gone through some trauma with some of our adopted children, and I gained 50 pounds. And I really wasn't the type, I mean, I've kind of yo-yoed the same 5 to 10 pounds my whole life, but to gain 50 pounds was like a big deal. And of course, I wanted to blame it on my thyroid, and I wanted to blame it on the depression and the trauma, which all that played a factor in it. But the reality was I was eating stacks of Oreos at night. I mean, no lie, it was bad. And that's all I wanted to do was eat. And so Andrew and I went to a wedding, my husband, and I was sat next to this, talk about a zest for life. She was in her 50s and she's out there dancing and she's so excited and she's super thin. She looks like she just came out of a high school prom. And I'm like, what do you do? And she said, my husband and I are health coaches. And I'm like, both of you? Well, what does your husband do to make money? And she's like, no, we're both health coaches. And I'm like, okay, I need to know about that. A, B, I need to know how how you lost the weight and how you also provide for your family. So, a little side note to that, in the midst of all that, I had also owned a Servpro franchise in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So I actually had a business that ran, and we built that up and sold it. And I love the symbolism of this. Right when we sold it because we brought in 2 teenagers into our life to live with us through foster care at that time. But we needed to have more help, so we wanted to move back towards our family. My husband was going to work with his dad. We sold our business, and I had a salary for 7 years. And I'll never forget that, because I had worked, and then now the Lord was allowing this to sustain us while I went back home and made all the casseroles again and was in everybody's face at night when they were going to bed. So it's kind of an interesting, I've had a little bit of big time transitions over the years. So anyway, back to the Servpro, sold it, all of that. And I was going somewhere with that, and now I've kind of lost my train of thought. I can't remember what I was going to tell y'all.
Well, I have a question while you're getting
Yeah.
your train of thought. Okay. So, or not a question, but a just observation. I love that you just shared that you worked your business, you were able to sell it, and right at the time that you brought two kids into your home,
Yeah.
teenagers into your home through foster care, how God provided you with a salary for 7 years. Like, can we just talk about that for a second? Because
Yeah.
we just did a podcast a couple weeks ago about the difference between support versus surrender. And we were talking about how sometimes God provides things like when we surrender to Him
Mm.
and say we're like, all right, I'm going to focus on my children. I'm going to prioritize this thing that He's called you to prioritize. It doesn't mean we're being lazy, but I think that is just such a testament to Him providing so that you are able to focus on your family.
Right. And that's where that kingdom minded goes. I've always been a Christian. I have always been a Christian. I was raised in church and in a Christian home. And, but I joke around and tell people, I think the age of accountability is around 25 to 30, whenever you're really like, why do I believe what I believe? And so I did go through that as well. But the kingdom minded part of it is I've always wanted to walk in the path that God has designed for me. And that trickles down to what is God designed for my children at this time, because we are their leader. Take me to your leader. We are their leader. And so I'm like, I need to be open to what is God doing with my children and my husband and my family. And that is my kingdom on earth. And so having that little portion of that's my top priority always. And of course we do have to have an income and all those things, but with the 7 years, that income provided, it paid our mortgage. Like we never had to take our
Wow.
mortgage out of my husband's income for all those 7 years. So I do remember now what I was going to say. So getting into that, meeting her at that wedding, I was looking for a new stream of income. Honestly, I had been like, dabbling in different things. I was a bookkeeper. Y'all, I would go pick up people's kids. I would walk their dogs. I would do everything in order to have, this child wanted guitar lessons. This child wanted this. And all of it was feeding the desire I have, because I enjoy creating an income, but it was also to provide for the people that I was in charge of. So, that was kind of part of it. So I was looking for another income stream, because I had 12 months left on my salary from Servpro, and I thought, well, if I can just replace that's good enough for me. And because we had become dependent on it. We paid our mortgage. We kind of needed to replace it, and so um she told me, and I basically chased her down. I got her phone number. I kept calling her, I ended up signing up to be a client and a coach on the same day, because I thought, well, if she can lose the weight and she can have an income, so can I. And I that's one thing. It's also kingdom minded. I look at you and Monique, and I look at everybody out there and think, we're all capable. We can all do what God's called us to do. And when I see the success of others, it just drives me to want to do what they did, or do more, or what is for me in this situation, or what is for my family. So anyway, so I saw that in Vonda and signed up to be a coach and a client in the same day. And y'all, I have to just be honest, since y'all market to network marketers and social sellers, I did not have a client for 3 months. I did 64 health assessments and got 64 no's. You need to hear that, because
Yes.
it took me 90 days to bring on a client. All while the weight was melting off of me, I was exuberant about the product. I was exuberant about all the things, but I had to earn that know, like, and trust factor. Even though my friends love me and know me, they were like, what the heck? She's little Debbie and drinks sweet tea all the time. This is not the Elizabeth that we know. And they were right. And so I think they were watching to see if it stuck, and see if I really did feel the way, if I was legit and telling the truth. Well, out of those 64, I think probably 60 of them are my clients now. But it just took me that 3 months of consistency, of stick to itiveness, of doing the dadgum thing, right? Like, instead of going,
Yes.
it's just not working for me. It's just,
Oh
I
my word.
people,
Yes.
yeah. And
Yes, yes, yes to all the things. Well, I just have to say, I love hearing your story because obviously you do have a ton of zest for life and joy, and people listening, if you're listening, you're probably thinking, yes, she does, just even listening to you speak. Excuse me. I know you're very passionate about helping other people, and it serves you well, in this industry, because that's what so much of this is about. And just even as moms and as Christian women, we have this desire. I think that's why, too, this industry fits so well into this women of faith, because we have a desire to serve and to help others.
Mhm.
And obviously, that's what you've been able to do. You had this transformational health, journey. And I love that you shared with us that you had to talk to 64 people, because so many times people come into this space and, for whatever reason, right? Maybe because they just have this perception of what the way someone's business works based on what they see online, on social media, maybe even a misconception from the way someone's marketing, the direct sales, laptop lifestyle, whatever kind of thing. But I love that you just kept going. And I think too, when you are convicted or when you feel like something has blessed you, it's like, I'm going to keep going until someone else gets on this bus with me, right? Like I think of that book, The Energy Bus by John Gordon,
Mhm.
and how he talks about you have this vision for where you want to go as the leader, and you're looking for people to get on the bus with you. And sometimes people are only on for a short time and then they get off the bus, and that's okay. But you know where the destination is. You see this vision for your life. And I love that you shared that, because I think some people get so discouraged, when they hear no. And sometimes it's by the people we love the most,
Mhm.
people that, and I would love to hear, did you have anyone that said no to you that was very like gut wrenching and like
My
frustrating
sister.
and discouraging? Or did you just think like, kind of have this mindset, well, it's working for me. And over time, like, because it seems like you already have this abundance mindset versus the scarcity of like, okay, I'm hearing no, whatever. But instead, that abundant mindset of like, it's working for me and I know my journey and my story will inspire others. Or did you have some hurdles and some like mindset blocks that you really had to get work through?
Oh, yes. I had tons of mindset blocks, and my sister rejected me, who I love the most, and she loves me the most. She is now a coach with me. But in the beginning, she was like, "No, you're crazy. And I work out all the time and I eat healthy and I don't need to lose any weight." And I was like, "I'm not saying you need to lose weight. I'm saying you need to work with me and you need to do this business because I know it can benefit your life." She actually need to lose weight. She was just in denial. And she would crack up listening to me say that, because she's right. She said she would never get on the scale. And and it always reminds me when I talk about her story too, she was not willing to face her own reality. And I do find that a lot in Optavia
Mm,
in particular, because it's health related and wealth related, that we
yes.
have to face our own reality. We have to actually get on the scale. We have to actually, I mean, I had to look at my budget and say, I need to replace that income, and I got to figure out how in the next 12 months. I gave myself 12 months. I replaced it in 3. I doubled it in 4.
Oh,
So
wow.
again, you have to realize that you're like, there's so much more on the other side of your surrender and of your obedience. And the minute that I met Vonda and she started telling me about it, I knew that was it. That was for me. And
Mm,
so again, I do have an abundance mindset, but I don't think everything's for me. I also am like, nope, that's not for me. I know that's not, and not for any other reason. I mean, little dumb things like, I love the people that sell. I've bought everything. I've bought Monate. I've bought Plexus. I've bought every health thing
yep.
that's out
I
there.
get it. I
I
got
bought,
like
right, all the
doTERRA.
essential
I
oils.
got, yeah.
I have the rollers on my forehead. Yeah, I do all the things. I do it to support the people. I also do it because they're good products. And
Right?
honestly, at this point in my life, I don't want to fiddle around with things that aren't going to work. And
Hmm.
so that's another reason why, I feel like I'm very intentional about sharing Optavia, because I know it works. I mean, look at me 4 years later. I'm still in an amazing place in my health. Better. I'm better every year, every month, really. And I would not trade that for anything in the world. And I want to share that with people. I want to say, hey, if you really do want to get healthy, I have a solution for you. And
Yeah.
so, yes, I do have that abundance mindset in all the ways, but especially with this, and it's not just because of the financial benefit, although that is there. It is also because of just the whole life, it's holistic.
Yeah, I love how you said your sister was in denial. And, when you shared your own story of you were walking through this hardship and trauma and how that led to you realizing and recognizing, okay, like I need to make
Yeah.
changes for myself. So let's talk about that for a little bit. I'd love for you to share maybe from some of the people that you've worked with or your own recognition. As you were describing it, I was thinking emotional eating. I don't know if you would describe it that way,
Yes.
but let's talk about that a little bit. Like, do you see that in people, and what would you say to the woman who might be in the position you were prior to starting Optavia?
Mhm. So that's really a great question. And I'll tell you what, it was emotional eating. It was anything to make me feel better from, just what had gone on and what was going on. But I had my birthday. It was my birthday, and I thought I need to step on the scale. I need to take care of myself. And it was like a little light bulb switch. This was before I met Vonda because my birthday's in August. That fall though, God was preparing me to meet her in October, but in August I was turning 44. Yeah, I was turning 44. And I had this little twinge in my head that was like, it was almost like, pull yourself up, get out of this. Like, this is not who you are.
Mm,
We have gone through a dark valley. We're gonna start going up the mountain now. So you're gonna need to get with me. I mean, that's what I felt like the Lord was telling me. And I felt like he said, get on the scale, stop lying to yourself. Cause I've always thought I was pretty, y'all. I'm gonna be so like transparent with y'all. I've always been like, I'm so beautiful, honey. Aren't you glad you married such a beautiful one? I literally said that to him this morning. We joke around about it,
I
but
love that.
confidence.
You are Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you. Well, confidence has never been a real problem for me, but I will tell you, during that period of time when I had gotten so overweight, I was starting to get embarrassed. I'd never had those feelings before,
mm,
which I'm grateful that I've had them now because I can minister to so many people who've had them. But in
yeah.
the beginning, I just really hadn't had that, but I did have it. But I did feel like the Lord was like, "Get your butt up. We're gonna do some work on you, and I am a servant." And he was like, you need to serve yourself for a minute, like, and not in a selfish way, but in a holy way. And so I just said, okay, yes, sir. And so I got on the scale and faced my reality and was like, okay, this is not going to work. And I said to my husband, I actually have it written down. I said, I want this, I was turning 44, and I said, I want the second half of my life to be way better than the first. And I need to start with my health. And
Mm,
so that's where I went into that. And so if you are struggling with that emotional, if you're in a pit and that emotional eating has just been eating away at you in all the ways with your health and with your identity, honestly, because it was damaging to my identity. Um, I just encourage you to take the first step. And I personally feel if you're not healthy, your first step is to step on the scale. It is one way to measure it, but it is a way to measure it and see if you are so far off from where you normally are. Let's just start there cuz honestly, it's the easiest place to start. It's
yeah.
just the easiest place because that one thing of getting my looking at the scale, figuring out what I needed to do. Y'all, my first goal was like I mean, if I just reached that first goal in my weight, I'd still be 30 pounds heavier. Like, you don't even know what you're capable of. You don't even know what you're supposed to be
Yeah.
doing, but it trickles down and you start figuring out, wow, I actually can be healthier. I can
Mm,
actually be toned. I can actually eat healthy for the rest of my life. And this is not some fad and not something that I'm just going to go through. And
yeah.
it makes you better for it.
Yeah.
So put on your own oxygen mask is what I did.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's an entire lifestyle change. And I think, when you said God was kind of speaking to you, like, this is not who you are, like, come on, let's get up. It's time to go. I think there are seasons, right, when we are going through like really hard things and we're kind of sitting in the hard and mourning and grieving, whether it's like someone's lost a loved one or a loss of relationship or, divorce or whatever. And you're like in that season of, hard and yuck and trauma. And I think ultimately what people don't realize is that they get to decide whether they stay there, right? Or you move past it. And, it's like that phrase, like you can choose to get better or stay bitter.
Right.
And, I love that you pointed out, you said the second half of my life, I want it to be better than the first. And so many women, I think, get to this place of like late 30s, 40s, 50s, and they think like, well, the best days are behind me, like my young days, my whatever. When really it's like, no, like you can start over today. You can start over
Mhm.
anytime. You can, it's like renewed every morning, right? And
Yes.
ultimately, the best is yet to come, right? Like
Yes.
eternal salvation is yet to come. It's not even here yet. And so, why not use what God has given us, the talents, the gifts, the time we have left to, I don't want to use the word leverage, but really like use what he has given us to the best that we can. Like, when someone said on our podcast recently, like, do the best, all for God's glory. Like every single thing that you do it for the Lord, And so
Yes.
it's like, I can totally relate to it's like going through trauma and you kind of ignore it, or like your sister, you're kind of
Yeah.
like, I'm just gonna, be in denial about my health because I have these excuses, right? Of like what's going
Mhm.
on over here and here.
Mhm.
Or not even like just be like, well, it is what I feel like for me, it kind of like crept up on me, but it really didn't. It was just like overnight, all of a sudden I had gained kind of like you, I had gained like 50 pounds.
Mhm.
And it's interesting too when you manage your like cortisol levels, your stress, and you do
Mhm.
start taking better care of yourself, whether it's like eating healthier, prioritizing your sleep, prioritizing what you consume, just being more disciplined. So I would love to hear in regards to, because obviously, right, from the health perspective, it's like, yes, you have to be super disciplined. But something that I have noticed in myself, as well as, other very successful entrepreneurs, the areas of their life that they become disciplined in kind of trickle into other areas of their
Oh, yeah.
life. And so like for you, it was this like transformational health. And I have seen your before and after pictures, right? And it's incredible. Like it's a completely different person. Even Evelyn was looking at a picture of me on my mom's phone and she was like, that's mommy from like a year and a half ago. Like she was even like, whoa, mommy looks weird, and just like, because I look completely different,
Yeah.
I had lost I've lost a lot of weight. And
Mhm.
I think for me, and I'm sure you can speak to this too, I have, now that I'm like prioritizing, like, kind of realigning my
Yeah.
priorities, like God like smacks us in the face sometimes and breaks us down. And he's like, hey, I'm over here. Like, you were trying to do all of this stuff on your own. And it helps us, I think, become a little bit more disciplined in other areas. So I'd love to know, like, as far as like your business or your spiritual walk, like, how did you see that transformation transfer, right? How did that transformation transfer from not just your health, but other areas of your life?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, as soon as we decided to get healthy, Andrew did it with me. My husband did. 2020 hit, and we were quarantined. So that was interesting. But and then there's a lot of trauma that goes along with that too. So there was just a lot. At one point, I think, and we were in a rental house because we had just sold our house because of the trauma we had there, and we were building a house. So there was a lot going on. But I will say, I love that you asked that question because it's changed me. I'm actually not even the mother that raised my children. Like, and my kids will say that. They're like basically mom 2.0, and
Oh,
and now I'm a grandmother, as I just touched my necklace with that says honey, because I'm now honey, which is I fully identify as that. That grandbaby has revolutionized our life. But I will say the discipline has I've always struggled with I'm not diagnosed ADHD. Everybody and their mother is now. I just am a very high energy multitasker, and it served me very well. I don't want to be diagnosed with anything because I don't want it to get in the way of how I'm productive. And so I just keep doing what I'm doing. But with that being said, I've always felt like I struggled with the discipline of just kind of getting in there and having routine, right? So I will say, because of the way Optavia is in particular, I would have never known that this would transform me in this way. But because we eat 5 fuelings a day and one lean and green, and we have to eat them, or we don't have to, but the plan is every 2 to 3 hours, it created so much structure in my life that I now like do everything that way. It's the most wild thing. I set alarms for everything. I tell all my coaches and all my clients to do this too. I tell myself when to change the laundry. I tell myself when to take the trash out. I tell myself when to wake the kids up, when to start dinner. I mean, at 8:49, it went off and said, go upstairs to your podcast room. I literally tell myself what to do all day long. That structure has honestly been it's my best friend. I mean, it really is. And it also keeps me not even on task, but in flow. I'm
Mm.
always in flow. Like if I have a friend that's coming over at 10 a.m., I know she's coming over at 10 a.m. and I have blocked off till 12 and I let her know pretty much, up front or even a few minutes into it. I have something else at noon. I'm so excited that we get this 2 hours together. And then do you think I'm distracted in those 2 hours? Not
No.
at all. I
Right.
am totally focused on her. Same with my kids, all of the things. So it's I don't really have I don't want to say this in a bad way. I don't want people to think, "Oh my gosh, I don't ever want to be that way." I don't really have free time. What I have is kind of scheduled time. I schedule free time and I can do what I want in that time, but I pretty much know what I'm going to do
I
because
love
of the
that.
structure. And I enjoy the structure because it's predictable. It
Mhm.
has predictable results. You don't have to be in a state of, I wonder if this is going to work or I wonder if it's going to be okay. That's what's changed the most probably for me.
I love that you said that because, first of all, one of my good friends I was in a mastermind with, she and I promoted to the top of the company around the same time, and she is still very successful, like the top recruiter, top seller in that company still to this day. And she has 5 kids and
Mhm.
she has alarms set. And literally, she's like, I wouldn't remember anything if I didn't set alarms. And it's not, like you said, to have this rigid life, but it's to have the freedom that you're not forgetting something, like especially to the mother out there who is struggling, even for myself, and it's my mom will have alarms like at random times of the day to pray for people, even,
Oh, I do
because
that too.
when you're like, I'll pray for you, and then you like never do, right? So it's like just little things. It can be transformational because then it's not this constant state of like, oh, I'm dropping the ball or I'm forgetting or frazzled or overwhelmed. It's just a state of being. It's a state of,
Right.
like you said, like you're being present in their current reality in that place. You don't feel like you have to constantly be checking your phone, like, what am I missing? Or am I supposed to be doing this? Or am I do that? When you're with your kids, you're with your kids. When
Yeah.
you're with your friend, you're with your friend. When you're working, you're working. When you're podcasting, you're podcasting. And I think that's a really powerful piece of advice because I think women as general, we have a lot of things that we have to juggle.
Mhm.
And I love that you said too that your company, literally the structure of the company,
Yeah.
right? It kind of, without you even realizing it, it gave you this framework, I guess, for how you are now living your life. And it's just
Right.
it's really unique and cool.
And you mentioned the freedom. I feel like the structure gave me the gift of the freedom. And
Hmm.
and that's and so for 4 years, I mean, I have tremendous freedom. And I will say this, I'm not perfect. It has not been a perfect thing. Holidays every year for 4 years have thrown it off so big time because you end up your college kids come home and you did all the things and your priorities will shift. And so it's not a once and done. It's an ever evolving process, but at least like you said, the framework is there. And
Yeah.
that's been the biggest blessing.
Yeah, that reminds me of the saying, discipline equals freedom. And just the
Yes.
more disciplined you are, the more it gives you freedom in your life. And I think you just gave thousands and thousands of dollars of value in your statement just regarding setting alarms, like having
Yeah.
alarms in your day or putting, like I use Google Calendar, where I have alerts that go off, but like putting alerts in your phone, scheduling time, if you schedule social media time, schedule time to respond to Messenger, schedule time to, do your reach outs, like certain actions in your business. If you have them scheduled, you are much more likely to show up and to actually do it. And I think the great thing is you get more done because you are focused. When you were
Yes.
sharing that you have a 17-year-old that you homeschool. So I have one child who is in school, and then I have 2 kids that just recently we transitioned to homeschooling them, and so I reconfigured my day, and I don't feel like I have lost I've just been very intentional about the limited time that I have, and I think for all of us, like, when you have limited time, but you are so intentional and so purposeful in that time, you're not getting distracted with other things because you trust your process, right? Like, if I know hey, my phone is dinging, but this is the time I'm focused on this. I know, okay, in a little bit, I'll eventually get to that because that's part of my day, but you're focused on what it is that you're doing. So I love that you shared about the alarms.
Yeah.
We would also love for you to share. So I feel like along with the skills that you have acquired in network marketing, that leadership is another skill as you have not only brought on your clients, but you've also brought on some team members. So if someone were wanting to grow in their leadership, what advice would you give them?
Oh, the first thing that popped in my mind is just stick with it. It's just stick with the what you know you're called to do, because I mean, y'all probably the elephant in the room. 2023 was rough for network marketers. It just has been, Optavia is no different. And we've struggled, and everything is different. Everything is the company as a whole is not the company I joined 4 years ago. And so we're all pivoting. Everybody's in this pivot stage. But I will say, as a leader, stick with it because and not blindly. I want to caveat that with if you are in a company that is going the wrong way, I would never tell you to stick with that. Ever, ever, ever. I would tell you to stick with what God's called you to do as a leader. And sometimes that is stepping away from where you are, or it's hunkering down and getting stronger in where you are. But you have to have the insight and the discernment to know you're where you're supposed to be. And I do feel that way even as a leader, even as if I bring when I bring on coaches, and as I bring on coaches, I say to them, I would never want you to join me as a coach unless it's what you feel like you're supposed to be doing, and what God, if they're a Christian, what God wants you to do, or if they're not a Christian, what you're wanting you to do. You kind of, I mean, because we're not a Christian company. Our network, our company isn't, and so we bring in all kinds. Now, I kind of attract women of faith just because that's what I am, but again, I definitely focus on once you have decided, once you are where God's called you to be, the consistency and showing up and valuing the education. I don't know if you're listening to this and you're not in network marketing, you probably don't have access to what we have access to, but the educational materials and the speakers and all of that we pretty much get for free. It's phenomenal. I mean, it is like it is next level. It is Tony Robbins on steroids. And so we get all of that. And I would just say to hunker down in it and really learn. Don't just be someone that just shows up. Be someone that shows up and takes action. And that's what a real leader does is they take action, because you can't lead someone if you're just out there floundering yourself. You have to be your yes has to be yes, your no has to be no. You have to focus on what is going to get you to your next goal, but what is going to get your and I don't want to say followers, but your coaches to their next goal. And I was really honest with a coach yesterday. She's like, I don't understand why this is not happening. And I said, I don't understand it either. But we don't always have to understand it in order to continue to press forward and do what we're supposed to do. And sometimes that clarity comes on the other side of it.
Oh, yes. So very good and so true. And I think, you're exactly right. Like this industry is, known for professional and personal development. And I love that. I really do. I'm grateful for my own journey through it,
Yeah.
as well as just in general, like watching the transformation in my friends' lives and how it's impacted my children. And I just love, I think leadership too is something that, yeah, it's not for everyone, but it can be, and like you said, when it doesn't fall into our lap or happen right away, or even if we've been working on towards a goal for years and it just doesn't seem to we're not exactly where we want to be. I always tell people that, we don't know, like you said, right? Like we don't know what God is trying to teach us or what he's equipping us with, or how he's refining us to get to the version of us that is required at that level,
Mhm.
And so as hard as it is, that's what leadership is all about.
It
Leadership is
is.
learning, evolving, it's growing through the hard, through the messy, no matter what. And
Right,
so,
right. It's
the
the big
women,
picture.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so, as you mentioned, our audience is, we do have network marketers, direct sellers, some coaches, a
Mhm.
variety of women, but primarily you have been speaking to the kingdom minded mompreneur. And so, we always like to ask our guests, like, what is your definition of the kingdom minded mompreneur?
Oh my goodness. I probably said that a little bit, but I can actually speak to that from personal experience recently because I am now keeping my grandbaby 2 to 3 days a week. And so my kingdom has shifted a little bit to having a newborn. She's 9 months old now, but from I started as soon as my daughter had her, I stayed with my daughter, and then I started keeping her as my daughter went back to work. She's a nurse, and so I have had to shift a little bit even in my own business. Now, I will say what I just said to you about the structure, it's my best friend. And so keeping with that, I've just had to adjust it a little bit with having Lucy, but when I'm with Lucy, she's number 1. And
Mm.
that's what I do. I pay attention to her and I have zero guilt for that. And I will say it is the remedy for mom guilt is to plan your time and
Mm,
to when you are there to be 100% in, and when you are not there to tell your people, hey, just like I did this morning, I texted my daughter. She's going to I'm keeping Lucy at 10:45, but I texted her and said, I'm going to be in my podcast room on do not disturb from this time to this time. You feel free to come, and you can be here all you want, and I'll see y'all when I get done. I have zero guilt about that because she knows, well, mom's got a life too, but also it shows my children and my family that we're not one track people. We have, children and a husband. I mean, if we were one track, we would just be single forever. And there are people called to that. I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying I'm not. I was called to get married to my husband, have a million children, and adopt a million children, and have a ton of businesses. If we wrote down all the businesses that my husband and I own between the two of us, we look like a mall. It's crazy. And so and also the moving 22 times in 25 years. Like, I mean, it's just
Oh,
been
whoa, we missed
a lot,
that.
right? I didn't even touch on that. But being kingdom minded is that. It's being kingdom minded. It's it's cultivating what you've been given. It's nurturing what you've been given. It's paying attention and not letting life happen to you. You actually get a say in it. And if we didn't have a say in it, we'd all be robots. We do have a say in it. And so as long as it's in alignment, and guess what? You'll know when it's not in alignment. And so you know, and especially if you have the Holy Spirit within you because you really know. And so you just kind of and when you're not in alignment, you pivot. And I think that that's where you can keep that kingdom mind and top of mind awareness is just this is all it is all his anyway. He owns it all. My hands are always lifted high and totally open. And because he owns it all and he gives and takes and money comes and goes and people come and go. But the Lord will never leave you or forsake you. And that is what we've always held fast to within my family and within my mind. And I can't even begin to tell you how many times I say that in my mind, especially after a lot of trauma going on in our lives. But with all that said, and I could talk about the trauma all day long, but the redemption is so much sweeter. And I
Wow.
choose to focus on the redemption because that's where if you that's where your focus goes, your energy flows. And I definitely focus on the redemption and the what's next and the best is yet to come. And Becky said it beautifully that heaven is the very best for us. We don't even know what to expect there. We have a few glimpses of it in the Bible, but I don't even think we can wrap our brains around it, which is such a blessing. And it also reminds me we can't even wrap our brains around the joy we get to experience on the earth. So you just have to walk in that and you take the next right step. And my favorite quote of my husband, I will quote my husband here. When we first found out about our sweet baby Evan, a little baby in the hospital, and I looked at the lady at my church and said, "Yes, we'll take him," without even asking my husband. And I came home, and this was my husband's words to me. We will definitely take him. We will continue walking through the doors as they open until God tells us to stop. And that is our family motto. And we have done that and it has served us so well.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Mic drop.
Mic drop. That's it. That's all I have.
Elizabeth, we could sit here and talk with you for hours.
I love it.
And thank you so much for being on our podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your heart, for your wisdom. And if someone is listening and they want to connect with you, whether it's they're interested in Optavia products, they're interested in, anything you have to offer, where can they find you?
I always have to look at my Instagram handle. Instagram is where I'm the most active, and it flows over into Facebook. But I'm the most active in Instagram, and my health assessment is right there in my bio. You can click on it and send it to me, and then we can have a conversation. That's pretty much how you set up an appointment with me. I think I do have Calendly in there somewhere too, but mostly if I get a health assessment from you, I'm going to call you. So that's where the most, you can get in touch with me that way. And my podcast is also linked there. It dropped every week last year, and we're going to start back in the spring quarter this year.
Yeah.
So again, sometimes you got to put a few things on the back burner in order to get together. And I've opened up a flooring store with my son, and so we're focused on getting that up and running right now. And he's going on his first sales call with me tomorrow, and I'm really in mentorship teaching him right now. So that doesn't have anything to do with anything other than that is my job too.
Yes.
So I'm doing that. But yeah, I would love to tell anyone about Optavia because obviously it's revolutionized our life. And I love the podcast, and the podcast is going to take on some different roles here in the next year, but I'm excited and looking forward to it.
Yes. Well, thank you, Elizabeth.
And I love you guys. You guys are my coaches. I'll put a plug in for them. I'm in their coaching community. I love what they do. I binge their podcast. I follow all the things that Monique and Becky do and pray for them. And I'm so thankful that God's allowed our paths to cross, and through Ren and Melanie and all the people. And it's just been such a blessing. And we were talking about that before we got on, how there's so many commonalities and the strands are just all connected. And that's just a sign that Jesus just loves us.
Yes. Well, thank you, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Thanks so much for listening to the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur. If you loved what you heard today, could you stop and give us a 5-star rating and review? It helps our visibility on podcasting platforms so others like you can hear more of this message.
Also, if this episode encouraged you, we would love for you to pass it along to your own biz bestie and anyone else who could benefit. Lastly, don't forget that if you want to hang out with us just a little bit more, join us inside the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur community. Click the link in the show notes. Bye for now.